Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football for Clemson fans across the country. Like, you fell short of your goals in 2024. I know Clemson fans are already looking at 2025 and saying that could be a special year. And in this landscape of college football with so many moving parts and changing rosters, this is kind of how it works. Michigan had that in 2023. I think Oregon is having this in 2024. It could be Clemson's year in 2025 where you look at your football team after 2024 and say, hey, made the college football playoffs, had a lot of good things come up at the end of the season. Looking at 2025, and this is early, right? It's late December. We're kind of taking a sneak peek at this roster in 2025. It is hard not to think Clemson is at the very least the favorites to win the ACC. This might be one of the best teams we see in the country in 2025. It obviously starts at the quarterback position, which we're going to get into. That's about as big of a step as you could have expected for Cade Klubnik going into year 2 to year 3. What happens if you see another step from year 3 to year 4? Not only are you looking at one of the best quarterbacks in all of the ACC, I think you're looking at one of the best quarterbacks in the country. In my mind right now, might be my early pick to win the Heisman Trophy next year. And I know that that's an early, bold prediction, but that's the way I look at it, because not only did Cade Klubnik take a massive step in the right direction, there's going to be a ton of talent around him at the wide receiver position, headlined by TJ Moore and Brian Wesco. Tyler Brown coming back from injury. We'll see if Antonio Williams comes back. If you're a Clemson fan, the pieces are there in 2025. Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect. We got some positions to talk about, maybe Clemson addressing. We have some question marks on this roster heading into 2025, but where it starts at the quarterback spot, at the pass catching weapon spot. If you're a Clemson fan, you know this is going to be a special team in 2025. Want to get into what we think this roster will look like in 2025. Talk about some transfer portal targets before we do. As always, to the Clemson fans, many of y'all know I've had a blast talking this program. One of my favorite teams to talk about. It's been a roller coaster over the last couple of months. A lot of y'all been rocking with the boys for a very long time. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's start previewing this football team. It starts with Cade Klubnik, and we all watch Clemson every single Saturday. We know the steps Cade took just watching this offense perform. And again, I'm not going to come up here and say like I called it, because I certainly didn't think the step would be this big. But I think a lot of us Clemson fans, along with myself, we looked at it and said there's reason to be optimistic, right? That was a first-year starter last year for Cade in 2023 with the new offensive coordinator, with a really banged-up pass catcher room. Cade going into year 2 as a starter, year 2 in the Garrett Riley system, a ton of more firepower around him. We expected to jump in the right direction. The jump we got was probably bigger than a lot of us expected. It starts with what he did pushing the ball down the field. I mean, this was one of the more explosive passing games that we saw. 44% completion percentage, 20-plus yards down the field. I think certainly Cade got better pushing the ball down the field himself. I think a lot of it had to do with the pass catchers on the outside. Guys like TJ Moore, Brian Wesco, for different reasons. TJ Moore, more of that bigger body, really good body control, 50-50 guy. Brian Wesco, I'm going to run right by you. Both of those guys allow Clemson to access the deeper third in a much more meaningful way. That's where it started. I think they got a little bit more to the play action game, which hurt Clemson late because the run game with Phil Moffitt and the injury of what you didn't really have much of one, especially against Texas. But Cade on play action, I mean, 67% completion percentage, 21 touchdowns to 1 interception. Elite number we're talking about. 58% completion percentage when blitzed, 16 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. One of the big improvements I saw from Cade, and the numbers kind of back it up, is what he did under pressure. He seemingly has gotten much more comfortable. Hey, when I'm hot and when I know my offensive line's getting overloaded, I got to get the ball out quick. I got to replace the blitzes. He got much better at getting the football out quick. I think secondly, got really good at evading pressure as an athlete. This was something we knew was a part of Cade's game coming out of high school. You didn't really see him balance it all that well as a first-year starter in 2023. significantly more comfortable creating more time for his wide receivers to get out down the field if the opportunity presented itself to be a really, really dangerous threat running the football. I mean, Cade got better in just about every category that you were looking for him to improve on. What does year 3 look like? If you can return all these pass catchers, you return Garrett Riley, it could take another step. And if it does, you're looking at one of the best offenses that we see in the country. Again, the pass catchers, if Antonio Williams comes back, I mean, TJ Moore, Brian Wesco going into year 2, I think it's very realistic to see them both take massive steps in the right direction, especially a guy like Brian Wesco, who was not necessarily on my bingo card to come in immediately and perform the way he did. Now, there's a little bit more physicality you want to see added to his game in some of those contested catch situations or kind of contact along the line of scrimmage, which as a true freshman, we expect if he gets better at that, you're looking at he's got some different movement skills. It's not only the straight line speed. I mean, he was a triple jump guy. He was a high jump guy. He is a twitchy, explosive caliber athlete. He's starting to translate that into his route running. You bring back Tyler Brown, this wide receiver room is going to be electric around Cade. You look at the tight end position. Yes, you lose Jake Bringenstool. I think a lot of Clemson fans are excited about what Christian Bencourt can do as a redshirt freshman. Didn't get to see a ton of him, heard a lot about him in spring camp and fall practice. Offensive line, we'll kind of see who comes back and who decides to go to the draft. You probably expect a couple of these guys to come back. I think you feel really good about Harris Sewell probably stepping in and being a starter somewhere along the offensive line. I think you feel good, provided he gets back healthy, about Elijah Thurman starting at one point on the offensive line. I look at the offensive line and say that might be a little bit of a question mark, but I think in terms of starting 5, you probably feel decent about it. The running back position is probably the biggest question mark. This is a position where I could see Clemson, because they didn't have great depth this year, right? If Phil Maffa was the guy, and when Phil Maffa got banged up and then you had Haynes go down with the injury, Adam Randall was playing running back in the college football playoffs. Not a knock on Adam Randall. This guy was a wide receiver for his first 3 years on campus. In like a couple of weeks, had to play running back. That tells you a little bit about the depth and confidence Clemson had in the running back room. Now, you got David going into year 2. You got Gideon Davidson coming in as a true freshman. I saw some pictures of him practicing with Clemson prior to the playoff game. Hard to see him not having some sort of role in this rushing attack next year. Looks the part. Obviously, we loved him coming out of high school. A veteran running back that Clemson could add in the transfer portal, I think might make a little bit of sense. This is, again, we know Dabo's not going to bring in 20 guys, but if now he's shown that if you have certain positions that he wants to address, he will go out and do it. We'll see if Clemson decides to add a running back in the transfer portal, but I do have a lot of confidence in terms of the young cats in this room. Now, the defensive side of the football, this is the most frustrating part. I mean, I got up here all summer long and was running my mouth about Clemson potentially having a top 5 defense in the country. That clearly did not come to fruition. I think the Wes Goodwin's job, and you guys know I don't normally get up here and call for jobs. I think you have to question it. This defense was, and it's not only because of the Texas game. I mean, this Clemson defense just didn't smother, didn't perform the way the roster says it should. There's a lot of guys who are going to be playing on Sundays at some point during their career, and it just didn't seem like a defense that had a ton of NFL talent. It was a defense that underperformed from the talent level, and I think whenever you get that, you got to question, are we getting the most out of them from a coaching staff department? That's my take on that. We'll see. Dabo Swinney obviously has a better feel for what went wrong with the defense this year. What do you have coming back? Will Help coming in the portal from Purdue, I think, is massive. AJ Hoffler just hit the transfer portal this morning. TJ, if you retain the guys you should retain, guys like TJ Parker and guys like Peter Woods, who I expect to be back at Clemson, that's one thing that, as frustrating as at times that Clemson does not go and grab guys from the portal as much as other programs, they do take care of what's on the roster. I mean, outside of a guy like Andrew Makuba, how many times has Clemson lost the guy they didn't want to lose? They take care of their guys on the roster. So you expect TJ Parker. And, of course, all these fans are going to get buzz around, hey, Peter Woods transferring, TJ Parker, TJ Moore. I look at it and say I'd be very surprised if any of these guys transfer. The glaring concern for me is on the inside of the defensive line. Now, Peter Woods going back to the inside, that certainly helps, but losing Peyton Page, Trey Williams, DeMonte Capar, that's going to be a blow, not only because they're three guys that will be playing in the NFL, but from a pure depth standpoint. Stephylon Green, damn impressive year from him as a redshirt freshman. I would expect him to be a difference maker for Clemson. Vic Burley, the jury's just still out. It's been a wild ride for him. I'm hoping he gives Clemson another year because I do think he's a very good football player. Got to stay healthy. Got to be more consistent. Sometimes guys are just slower in developing guys, and especially when you talk about along the line of scrimmage, there's that level of grown man physicality that you have to develop along the line of scrimmage. We'll see if Vic Burley can get that going into year 3. I think the big question mark here in terms of does Clemson need to address this position in the portal or not is 5-star Amari Adams. I think Amari Adams is going to be able to come in and play early, kind of like we saw Peter Woods do in 2023. If Amari Adams is the guy I think he is, Clemson, there's a good chance that Clemson might just be fine in terms of the interior defensive line. Linebacker room, you feel pretty, and Clemson went to 3 linebacker sets quite often. I like it. I mean, Sammy Brown and Wade Wood as Jamal Anderson kind of coming in through the chambers. We've seen some good things from him in the spring games. And then the back end, look, Avian Terrell had a bad game against Texas, maybe struggled a little bit towards the back half of 2024. We all know he's a stud. Jaden Lucas can play very good football when he's healthy. Ashton Hampton is going to be a difference maker for Clemson. I would throw in Corey and Gibson as a guy that pushes. Sheldon Lewis, Khalil Barnes. I think Ricardo Jones will be a guy at safety. I look at that, and maybe you want to add just a veteran presence in the safety position, but I look at it and say, I'm not too worried about what Clemson has in the secondary. This team right now checks a lot of boxes, and you check the boxes at the most important positions on the football field, right? Cade Klubnik and the pass catchers. You feel good about the offensive line, difference makers on the defensive line. To me, from a roster standpoint, this Clemson team can be extremely dangerous. Now you got to put it on the field in 2025, potentially. Again, the transfer portal additions, it's not 5 to 10 guys we need to bring in. Can you bring in 3 or 4 legitimate difference makers like a Will Helt that can put you over the top and really allow you to compete at the highest level of the sport? That's what we're looking for. But this team in 2025 is going to be dangerous. Make no mistake about it. We'll continue to update it as it goes along. Hopefully some more commitments to talk about. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.